welcome to another episode of The Sports Break. I'm your host, Renee Washington, here on RVNTV.tv, joined by my co-host, Kwame Fisher-Jones. And Kwame, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. I feel like I'm so far away from you.
I know, I do too. So this past Monday, interesting enough, Jacksonville Jaguars left tackle Brandon Albert decided that he no longer wants to retire. Back in July, he said he was retiring, he was done, that's it for him. Here we are in August, and he has changed his mind.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him unretiring?
You know, I thought this was a good story because you hear about so many other athletes today retiring. So for him to decide to unretire, it's funny. It's funny for a couple reasons. The first one is, the one thing you want about a person is desire. Like, you can't coach desire, you can't teach desire. It's something that has to be there. So when a person quits you and then comes back to you, It's like, I'm good. But when you quit right before training camp, it's like, I don't want to run, I don't want to eat, I don't want to do any of that. Oh, season's in 2 weeks? Sign me up, I'm going to go. So yeah, and he's a lineman, so weight is an issue with him, and he was a high draft pick who struggled, so I won't say struggle because he's played multiple years in the league, but it's just interesting that he wanted to quit in that Jacksonville heat and humidity. We start dealing out game checks because the preseason starts.
Oh, yeah.
So, you get a little bit of money. I don't think they get paid for the preseason. Let me check that. I don't think they get paid for the preseason. But he gets an opportunity to play in preseason, so that is hilarious to me. If I'm Jacksonville, I don't want him back. I mean, let me ask you. Would you take somebody back that quit you?
Well, I think the hard part is he didn't want to be with Jacksonville to begin with. When he left Miami and was now joining Jacksonville, he didn't want to be a part of that team. He didn't want to go. He didn't go to OTAs. He wasn't there. And now, all of a sudden, because maybe the money, he doesn't want to have to pay back that contract that he would have when he retired. Exactly, that's it right there. He was supposed to give that whatever the millions of dollars it was, that contract. He had to pay that back because he decided to retire. So if I'm looking at my bank account and I'm seeing, okay, I could be getting the money or I could be paying it back. And here's the Jaguars, now they're training with the Patriots, they're getting ready for the start of the season. He's like, you know what, maybe I should go back. I don't think they should take him back.
When you said millions, my body hurt. When you said, first of all, when you said give back, it tingled a little bit.
Give back
when
millions.
You said give back millions, it's just a sharp pain that shoots up from your man parts. It's like, and he has to give it back because he quit. So if he stays,
it's on him. He has to give it back.
When I read that, I thought about the big boy line in Miss Jackson. I'll disconnect the cable and turn the lights out. Like, this is my house. You're my player. I'll take away everything. You will sit there in a dark house with nothing in debt, or you come in and you play. The thing about it is, and it's obvious he doesn't want to play football. When you break up with someone, it's obvious you don't want to be with that person anymore. You get out there, you spend a couple of lonely nights by yourself, and then it's like, oh, you know what? I think I want you back to keep my bed warm until I can find somebody else. So that's what Jacksonville knows. Like, we all know he doesn't want to play football. So it would have been better for him to keep that under his hat, to sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to go out and pull a hammy-mammy or have some tenderness in my knees, blow a toe or something. Like one of those injuries that no one can, like an injury that no one can gauge.
Like a turf toe.
Yeah, no, turf toe is serious.
I know.
Turf
toe
is
you say
serious.
Turf toe, see? You were immediately like, oh yeah.
Turf toe is, because your toe looks like this. But what is tendonitis? It's called tendonitis.
I had tendonitis.
Yeah, but
That's a very painful thing.
Yeah, but they can't gauge it. Right. So, there's no MRI you can take to see how tender
you're lying.
Yeah, so you can just say, oh, my back, my neck, I got to pull this, pull that. They can't gauge that. Why quit? Don't make weight. Yeah. Jump off sides in every drill. Like, do things to sabotage your own success so you get cut. You make a smooth transition to ESPN. Don't quit and then say, damn, everything was in her name? Like, my credit's going to look like what?
Oh, wow.
She gets everything? The car? It was cheaper to keep her. I'm going to just go back.
Wow. That's about right. I mean, honestly, in this case, if you are interested in leaving the league, there are other ways to do it. You could just sit the bench for a little while. Then they don't want you anymore. You get cut.
Pull it and beat. Always be hurt. Pull a Joel and beat. Always be hurt. Always gonna hurt. Oh, you're always hurt, but you're always on Twitter dancing around. Like, think about it. Joel Embiid it always comes back to Ralph.
It always comes
Sampson.
back to him.
Always comes back. As a Sixers fan, looking at the Sixers poster, it always comes back to Ralph Sampson. Think about it. Joel Embiid's got foot, knee, and back injuries, right? We ain't never seen this dude, and we have never, but for the sake of the art, we ain't never seen this dude on Twitter or Instagram in a sling, brace, crutch, You know, he's doing the jitterbug.
Icing, nothing like I don't see anything that looks like
he's pop locking. He's doing everything. That's what you do. You say, yo, coach, I can't. My knee hurts, and then you're on the Instagram bowling. You know, on Instagram bowling, mud wrestling, like doing something that displays I'm fine. I just don't want to be there. It's not you, it's me. You know what I mean? That's what it was. So it's a great topic. I thought it was interesting to discuss.
Yeah, and there's another. We're gonna switch gears and go into another athlete that is getting ready to retire, and that is Usain Bolt, the 8-time world champion.
Like my favorite athlete.
He's like, you know what? I like him. He's exciting to watch. But unfortunately, he just finished in 3rd in his final 100-meter race. And he lost to 2 Americans.
Yeah. Justin
Gatlin being one of them. And he has had a history of issues with drugs and different things like that.
Good dude.
And 34, 35, beat Usain Bolt. That's a big step for him in his career. Yeah. And for you, you love Usain Bolt.
I'm a huge Usain Bolt. I'm a track. I love I like a lot of athletes. That's why I always laugh when you say like I don't like women, gender sports and stuff. Like I love track and field. I love like all the sports where it's pretty much the greatness is undefined by gender. And the Usain Bolt is one of those athletes, like once in a generation athletes. Justin Gatlin, for a lot of people that don't remember, was one of the top athletes in Olympics. And then he failed a couple drug tests, and then he had some other financial issues. His trainer, I want to say Joe Kersey, Jackie Joyner Kersey's former husband, was his trainer. There was a lot of issues there. Yeah. And for him to come back and beat Usain Bolt was great. But the thing that stuck out to me in the story was he got booed.
Right.
He got booed. Like, how dare you beat Usain? And I agree. I'd boo him too. Boo! I love Usain.
Let him win one more.
I ain't letting you win a damn thing. I paid all that money to see Usain win. I don't want to see Justin win. Like, I want to see the Bolts win. I don't want to see you win. Like, what is that?
And he came in 3rd.
Ron. Where was the race at? Because I was trying to see this before we got started. What was the race at?
I don't even know, actually.
Yeah, you know, if it was in Brazil, I understand.
Idea.
If it was in Argentina, I understand. If it was in, like, Ecuador, any place where you can kind of enjoy the ambiance of the country, I can understand. It's his last race. He's celebrating. You kind of like, wait. I hope it's not his last race. He can't lose that way.
You know, I wonder if he is now going to come back again.
Got to.
Because you can't go out like that. You
Got
can't.
to.
You want to go out on a high note. You want to be able to be the one getting that standing no, the Manu Ginobili, standing ovation, hand up in the air as you're walking out of the arena, track, whatever sport you play. And I do think it's interesting because people were saying that Justin Gatlin shouldn't have been running at all. I mean, given his, troubled past, like why is he even racing? And then now he turns around and beats the biggest name in track. And for him, I think that's yes, he had problems. What athlete has not had issues? And we talk about this on our show a lot. There are a lot of athletes that have had issues.
I would not expect that coming from you.
There are a lot of athletes, college level, professional level, that have had issues with the law. And for him to get himself back together and be able to race, and not only just race, but win against Usain Bolt, I mean, kudos to him for that.
He kind of got caught cheating, though. Like,
he did.
It's like, I'm not all for the cheater. I get some people want to cross those lines to win. I understand the desire to be great, and that's what we were talking about with Brandon Albert. You can't teach desire. So sometimes that desire, you're going to push the envelope. You're going to go places you probably should not go. But when you get caught, it's one of those things where now people want to dictate what your punishment to be. And I explain this like when I talk to young kids all the time, I tell them you need to understand that circumstances and finances dictate your punishment. Your punishment is not going to fit the crime. I don't know where in the Bible, the Quran, or anywhere it says thou punishment should fit thou crime.
Right.
So, some people are doing 20 years for one bad decision. So it's interesting to me when people say, oh, this person's paid their debt to society, will show me what the debt was.
Right. It's not the same
so,
for everyone.
With Justin Gatlin, it was interesting that he got booed because people still carry that burden, carry that cross. And that's what you have to accept when you cross that road. You want to, and one of the hot button issues that we discuss is the hookers in Louisville or the coach that paid. But we both agree that it's not a high moral act. Right. And when you have somebody in there that participates in those type of activities, you can't turn around and say, "Oh, I didn't know." You may not have known, but they may not have known that he was perusing with prostitutes, but they knew he wasn't of high moral fiber.
Right.
And that, so you don't get to dictate how that punishment goes.
And for the person that's doing, sorry to cut you off, for the person that's doing that activity, there's a consequence that comes with that. Mm-hmm. If I go out and I solicit prostitutes and I get caught, something bad is going to happen. There is a chance that you do something wrong and you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Yeah. And you have to be ready to deal with those consequences. So on both sides of it, I definitely think people have a hard time judging everyone the same in terms of whatever everyone had. You have Colin Kaepernick, you have Michael Vick, you have Justin Gatlin, you have different athletes that have done different things, and everyone does not treat them the same way. Someone may accept Michael Vick and say, oh, he's changed, I can respect him now, and may not accept what Justin Gatlin did. So that's just something as an athlete, especially celebrity, a high-profile name, or someone in a position of power, you have to be ready to understand that maybe some people may be able to forgive you, some will not, and you just have to deal with it.
To that point, and that's a great point. Let me just throw this in there. There's also this thing called expected crimes, stereotypical crimes. Mm-hmm. Michael Vick committed a crime that that was typical, stereotypical. Justin Gatlin, stereotypical track athlete. Okay, right. So it's kind of like that accepted crime. So where your punishment in the court of public opinion may be forever withstanding, but your point or your punishment in the actual realm of the arena may be short-lived. When in the case of Colin Kaepernick, he didn't commit a crime, but he stepped out of that expectation box. So it's kind of, I feel like it's disingenuous for people to say, well, he needs to change his image, or he didn't commit a crime, he made a conscious decision. There's a consequence to everything you do. Embrace the consequence. Don't be a victim, but embrace the consequence.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Well, when we get right back, we're going to talk about some NBA players that are now facing some consequences, both good and bad, for decisions they have made and trying to make. So don't go too far. We'll be right back after this break.
Most of the time, it's easy to know which option is better. Other times, not so much. So it's good to know that Mazola corn oil has 4 times more cholesterol-blocking plant sterols than olive oil. And a recent study found that it can help lower cholesterol 2 times more. Take care of those you love and cook deliciously. Mazola makes it better.
La Esperanza Mexican Restaurant and Bar, the best authentic Mexican restaurant in South Jersey. Your friends and family will enjoy the fun and the food, like our staple guacamole, tamales, and ceviche. Our weekday lunch special is just $7.99. We also offer Saturday and Sunday brunch. Enjoy the largest selection of tequilas in South Jersey, Mexican beers, bottle and draft beers, fresh margaritas, and daily beer and margarita specials. La Esperanza Mexican Restaurant and Bar, family owned and operated since 2002.
Hi, I'm Becky.
And I'm Eric.
And this is Cooked and Uncorked.
It is.
It is. And you can check us out Mondays at 10:30.
10:30, every Monday.
See you there. Got a quarter?
Hi, I'm Jim Cucinato. I'm inviting you to watch my show on the Halo Health Network on RBN. We cover everything you always wanted to know about health but was afraid to ask. We have interesting guests who can help you how to live healthier, how you can be smarter about your health, how you can help your family live healthier and be healthier. We are on Tuesdays from 9:30 Eastern Time to 10 o'clock. Please come and watch us.
If you have a story or product that you'd like to share with our viewers as a guest on the Morning Coffee Show, please contact us at info@radiovisionnetwork.com.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
back to the sports break.
Closer to each other. Watch out now.
I'm your host, Renee Washington, with co-host Kwame Fisher-Jones. We were just talking about Usain Bolt losing in his final 100-meter race. And we were talking about Brandon Albert with his decision to unretire. So now moving into basketball. Andrew Wiggins would like to have a max contract. But for the Minnesota Timberwolves front office, they have decided that they want to sit down first. The owner wants to sit down first and meet with him to see where his head's at, to see if he has the commitment and everything that's needed to be a full max contract player for a franchise. You're shaking your head. What do you think?
It's got disaster and all over. Here's why. When you are looking at talent and ability and you're reviewing people, people have a tendency to not trust their eyes and their instincts. They tend to lead with their heart or their emotion, and they get, someone very intelligent said something to me the other day where they said, sometimes I talk before I listen. And I was like, yeah, you do a lot, but you have to accept that as part of the package with the person. But then to get back to the point, this is a situation with Andrew Wiggins. Owner Glenn Taylor knows what he's looking at. He knows he's looking at a guy who could score but doesn't do anything else well. He's looking at a guy that is always on 75. He's never going to be at 100. He's never going to be at 50. He's always going to be at 75. And he's trying to convince himself that giving this dude a max contract is a good idea.
Right.
So what's the best way to convince yourself into somebody you instinctively and visually do not believe in? You sit down and let them sell you a bag of goods. You sit down and they tell you, and I equate everything to women because the world centers around women. She sits down, she tells you how committed she is, how much she, but her actions don't jive with it. And you think, well, maybe this time will be different. It's like a woman that cheats on you. This time will be different. This time we move to a different state, we move to a different job, it'll be different. And what happens? Eventually she does the same thing. In this case of Wiggins, he is who he is at this point. It's not going to change. There's a reason why your general manager wanted to trade him. There's a reason why his agent is trying to push him for a trade, because the proverbial jig is up, to quote Kendrick Lamar. The jig is up. And now you're trying to turn around and give him $160 million because you want to end your playoff drought. By mid-season, we'll hear how they're disappointed with Andrew Wiggins, and there's a chance it may not. I don't know the contract specifications if he can be traded before mid-season, but he'll be available again next summer.
I guess my biggest thing is it's kind of tough in this situation. What comes first? It's kind of like you give somebody a raise. Do you give them the raise before they change and become a better employee, or do they become a better employee and then you give them the raise? And in this case, for him, they just brought in Jimmy Butler. They still have Karl Anthony Towns. They have a ton of talent. They have a good young team that can do well in the playoffs. So why does this need to be an option now? In my opinion, if I'm the owner, I'm sitting down talking to them saying, look, you had this year. If you prove to us that you deserve this contract, we put the talent around you. You have everything now that you should need to be able to at least reach, far in the playoffs, make the playoffs, go for it, make it past the first round, and then we can have this discussion, a year from now. But I don't think that they need to make this move yet. And if he's gonna leave because he doesn't get a max contract, then that tells you all you need to know.
Well, it's not so much. Man, there's so many layers with this. ESPN has them slated for 52 wins this year, like the fourth best team in the Western Conference. Yeah. You're essentially trying to convince yourself. Let me ask you something. We both coach. You're an active coach now. What's harder to coach? A player who stays at 10 at all times, or the player that you got to get up to 10? Who's harder to coach?
Definitely the one you got to get up to 10.
Wiggins is that guy, and
that's the problem.
It's easy to see. You saw it in college. He didn't bite as a pup. He's not going to bite as a full-blown dog. And it's funny to me because Philly wanted him. That was the whole thing. We want him. And if you ever need, you're gonna laugh when I say this. If you ever need an indictment of a player, see how the city of Philadelphia feels about him. If they think he's a great player and they want him, then you don't want him.
You don't want him.
They don't. Fans in Philly haven't spotted a champion in I don't know how long. They don't know what it takes to win a championship. So if they think that guy's the best, Boston did the same thing. They decided they wanted Marco Fultz. And now the whispers are, which we'll talk about on NBA Files Saturday at 1:15 here on RVN TV. one of the things they talk about is the fact that Jason Tatum was who Boston was going to take number one. And he was like, oh, no, we got the better of that deal. Okay. Yeah. It's the same thing with Wiggins. And they're going to give this dude $160 million because he had a good interview. Pause. Right. Think about that for a second. You're gonna let her be your latex salesman because she had a good interview. Okay. The shit be sinking. Him and Jimmy Butler play the same position. I'm not gonna get into NBA insight, but the bottom line is him and Jimmy Butler play the same position, same style of play. Jimmy Butler's better. So that's why he was available in trade talks. Let your GM be your GM. Don't make decisions based on emotion. You have two sides of the road. What's best for the player, what's best for the business. Sometimes the two don't meet. Sometimes you got to do what's best. In this case, trading Wiggins is what's best for business.
Yes. And I don't think that, in my opinion, it's just not necessary at this point. They had a number of great moves in the offseason. The Timberwolves, in my opinion...
Allegedly.
Well, yes. We'll see how they actually pan out.
Because I think they're going
to... But on paper, right now, in my opinion, they look like they've made the best decisions and trades and things like that. So for Andrew Wiggins, who, again, he was supposed to play with the Cavs. He got traded for him and Kevin Love with that deal. Now he's with the Timberwolves. They haven't done anything, really the past couple years. And now you have a chance to be a better team. Let that be your focus. Not as much on what you're paying Andrew Wiggins. Let your focus be, hey, if you get us to the second round of the playoffs and you prove to be a top team in the Western Conference, then we'll give you a full max contract. Done.
I'm going to blow your mind real fast. In the history of the NBA, which is a fairly young league, like there are people we know that are older than the NBA.
Yes.
There have been 3 players traded that were number 1 overall picks prior to playing for their team. Mm-hmm. Chris Webber, 0 championships. Andrew Wiggins, currently on his second team, and Markelle Fultz. What are the 3 consistent factors of those players? There was all questions. That too, but there were all questions about desire, intensity, and tangibles. Yep. There were all questions of those things. And Chris Webber wound up hitting luck with his 3rd team with Sacramento, but you forget he started with Orlando, then was traded to Golden State, then was traded from Golden State to Washington, then from Washington to Sacramento, then from Sacramento to the Sixers. And, so there's a reason why these guys move around. And you can lie to the eye in the sky doesn't lie. Your instincts don't see and they can't touch, so they only tell you what they feel. Right. You gotta believe those things. Those are the most important things to success in life.
And I think there is something to be said about a player that is a top player that stays on one team or 2 teams and has that drive and that work ethic. There's a reason why front office administrators are getting rid of their all-star players. Mm-hmm. You don't see Steph Curry being moved to another team. No. You don't see, even LeBron, that was more his decision.
It was all his decision.
But you don't see, the GM sitting up saying, we got to get rid of LeBron, or we got to get rid of Kobe. They're not getting rid of the players that are doing the right things day in and day out, that are in the gym all hours of the day, working hard, trying to do what they can to help their team win. They're getting rid of the people that are a problem.
Kobe did a whole damn press conference at the East Coast tour about how he wanted to leave. Kobe said, he did a whole press conference, and East Coast called out his general managers, owners, said they promised me things, and those things didn't come to fruition, and I went out. They still didn't trade Kobe.
Still didn't trade him.
They sabotaged the deal. He had a deal in place to go to Chicago. Nah, we want your firstborn. They started asking for things. We want to own Sal's Pizzeria on the north side. They just started asking for crazy things because they had no intention of trading him. Minnesota actively shopped him, and now the owner, who should not sit down. I'm quoting Kendrick Lamar again. Sit down. Sit down. Let me do my job.
Oh, man.
Because how are you going to... Look, I'm not going to get a basketball 101, but how are you going to win? How are you going to win when you've got a Karl Anthony Towns who's developing into a dog? You have a dog in Jimmy Butler, and now you have a, pup.
Yep.
A cat. And... I didn't say it, but I did the underlining cat in front of, and with Wiggins. It just doesn't work. The handshake don't match the smile, and it's going to be disastrous. And I wouldn't give him $160 million. And if you really want to make a good deal, just poly on this. If you really want to think of all the aspects of everything, Minnesota gave Kevin Love a boatload of money. They never made the playoffs with Kevin Love.
Right.
He went to Cleveland, and they won a championship in spite of Kevin Love. Mm-hmm. Make the deal. Do the deal. Get rid of Wiggins.
Right. And speaking of Cleveland, when we get back from this break, we will get more into talking about all the things going on with Cleveland with LeBron and Kyrie Irving. We'll be right back.
That is a smooth segue, ladies and gentlemen.
Most of the time, it's easy to know which option is better. Other times, not so much. So it's good to know that Mazola corn oil has 4 times more cholesterol-blocking plant sterols than olive oil. And a recent study found that it can help lower cholesterol 2 times more. Take care of those you love and cook deliciously. Mazola makes it better.
Welcome back to the Sports Break. I'm your host, Renee Washington, here with Kwame Fisher-Jones. And we just talked about Andrew Wiggins. We talked about Usain Bolt, Brandon Albert. But now we're going to get into the Cleveland Cavaliers. Former GM, David Griffin, he's starting to speak out now. As we know, earlier this summer, him and Cleveland mutually parted ways, whatever nice way you want to say it. He's no longer working with the Cavs. And he's come out to say that Kyrie Irving, for his decision to step up and say that he does not want to play with LeBron anymore, or the Cavs, but in my opinion, with LeBron, that's what the main thing he's saying.
No, you're right. LeBron.
Yes,
LeBron. You're right.
That Kyrie has courage because he has had the courage to stand up and say that he doesn't want to play with one of the best players in the history of the NBA. Is that courage?
You looked at me like, so... yeah, it's a ballsy move. Sorry to be crass, but it's a ballsy move. It's you're putting your chips in front of the table. I think the logic and the reasoning behind it is not male. It's very petty, but the fact of the matter is he made the decision. I think courage is a very personal word to use. As a writer, words matter. And when I hear, certain words, they set off a red flag. Like, okay, this is an insight into the person's courage. Tends to think that there's a certain belief or insight to Kyrie. I know we're pressed against it. The bigger thing is he believes Kyrie will be traded. And I forget the brother's name that's running the organization. I know his first name is Kobe. I forget his last name. He's got a hell of a road. What is it? Altman. Thank you. Once again on her job. Look, you got to make the deal for Kyrie. I believe it's going to involve Melo, and I believe Melo goes to Cleveland. You have to get a point guard if you make that decision, or you have to get somebody who's athletic enough to defend on the wings and move on. But
got Derrick Rose.
Child, please. Someone who's athletic enough and who won't disappear for a game and who won't, get caught up in sexual assault charges. Yeah, I went there. A guy who does not teeter injured, can play, can he, guy that has a verse grasp of the English vocabulary where we're not going to get one word phrases. Look, I would love to see Kyrie get traded for a personal, because I said when he came out that I didn't think he was a franchise player. Right. In that draft, you had Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson. Who would you rather have now?
Yeah, no-brainer.
I even think Isaiah Thomas was the last pick in that draft. Who would you rather have now for Cleveland? So I look back at that and, I kind of pat myself in the back. I got big biceps, so I can't reach my back. I mean, I can, but then I give you a whole insight of everything else. So,
all right, okay. The thing, there are two sides to it.
Jump in now.
There are two sides to it. And there have been arguments, and I can see this side of it too. Kyrie Irving's 25. LeBron James has talked about either possibly leaving within the next year, or he's getting older, so he's not going to be there forever. So it's kind of the question of, if you're Kyrie, do you stay and wait until LeBron leaves, whether it's next year or 5 years from now, and now the team is in shambles. They're not going to be a good team when LeBron leaves.
And that's
or on the other side of it, if you're Kyrie and you're 25 years old, do you take that chance? This is what Griffin is saying. Do you take that chance to see if you can be a franchise leading player? He came into the Cavs when he signed that 3-year or 5-year contract, I think it was, 3 years ago. That was before LeBron came to the team. At that time, he thought he was going to be the front runner of the Cavs. And then LeBron comes. He's now in his shadow, as he says. God forbid you're in LeBron's shadow.
God forbid you can't stand up, though.
And he wants to see if he can lead a team. And that's my thing. You've been to the championship how many times in the last 3 years? 3. You've won a championship how many times in the last 3 years? 1.
What happened in the first time he got to the championship? Whatever, he got hurt.
He got hurt.
And prior to that, it was 64 and 117. We got like 10 seconds here. I understand everything you're saying, but the fact of the matter is if LeBron's going to leave, then it would be your team. So, if it's just about leading a team, you fight one out with LeBron, and if he leaves, great. If he doesn't, then you can play a move. He opted to resign with Cleveland, but it was pretty much a foregone conclusion throughout league circles that he was going to leave.
Right.
He was going to leave. So look, bottom line, all said and done, Kyrie is one of these new millennial, new generation type dudes. And everything is 40 seconds, 30 seconds with them. And it's all about the short-term moment. It's the consequences of elevating Allen Iverson, if you will. It's all about that game and that moment, highlight reel. When I get out of the, and you've seen this when you go in the locker room, they're on their phones looking at who tweeted about them, instead of interacting about game film and stuff like that. Kyrie's part of that generation. If I'm Kobe, general manager for the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's done. He's out of here, and I'm fighting like hell to get Carmelo in.
I still just go back to the fact that if you are a young 25-year-old player, what better player to learn under than LeBron James? I mean, there are a number of guys that have come through the league, Tim Duncan, LeBron James, that have been able to help mold younger players and then set them up so that when they do leave, that player knows how to not only just handle themselves on the court, handle themselves as a young man, handle themselves as a figure in society, handle themselves publicly with making sure that they're always doing the right thing. And that's somebody that you want to emulate and follow in his footsteps. So I don't think it's as much of a shadow thing. I think that he's molding him to be able to be a good player when he leaves. Because Kyrie, as you mentioned, he does have some work that needs to be done. Both maturity-wise, his game needs to change. He needs to change what he's doing off the court. He's on yachts with all, whatever the case, blah, blah, blah.
I knew you were going to go there. I knew you were going to go there.
I was going to.
I knew you were going to
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But he's trying to help him teach his own. Yeah, whatever. Could have had some sisters on that yacht. But regardless, LeBron is trying to mold Kyrie to be ready. And he doesn't appreciate that right now. And I think 5-6 years from now, he will. But by then, it might be too late. So that is the price of youth. Sometimes your courage is more immaturity and lack of knowledge. So we are all out of time, unfortunately. Thank you for joining us on the Sports Break. We look forward to seeing you back here on, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, next Tuesday, every day of the week, 9 in the morning on rvntv.tv. I'm your host, Renee Washington, joined by Kwame Fisher-Jones. Have a great Tuesday.